Vance Palmer was an Australian writer of novels, short stories, plays, essays and literary criticism. He was born in Queensland in 1885 and died in 1959. His short story Josie first appeared in the Bulletin magazine in 1941. Before the reading, I think a note may be appropriate for one section of the story. In that section, children argue over whether dip is the cause of another child's death. I suspect some listeners, especially younger ones, may be a bit puzzled by this. The kids are certainly not referring to the savoury mixtures we use to make some foods more tasty. They're talking about sheep dip. That's the wash containing an insecticide that farmers immerse sheep in to protect them from parasites, such as ticks and lice. Unfortunately, the history of the use of sheep dip has included cases where people have been poisoned through their contact with it. Josie, a short story by Vance Palmer. It was drowsy in school that afternoon. We woke up only when the teacher stopped talking and went out onto the veranda to speak to a boy who had ridden up on a bicycle. Those who could see from the back seat said it was young Peyton, who worked in the brickfields near the station. Young Peyton, Josie's brother. There was a buzz of whispering, a scuffle among the class standing round the blackboard, all wanting to get a look out of the window. No one was tall enough without standing on the teacher's chair. When he came back, he had taken off his spectacles, and his eyes had the pale, uneasy look we always noticed in them when the inspector was about, or someone's father was coming to speak to him. "You can go back to your seats," he said to the class on the floor. And then, rapping with his cane on the table and calling for silence, he began in a queer voice that seemed to come from the back of his throat. "I have some sad news for you, children. Death, it is a solemn thought. Death has visited our little community for the first time since this school was opened. You will be grieved to hear that your little playmate, Josie Peyton, passed away this morning. There will be no more school this afternoon. Those of you who haven't had your homework already set can leave it till Monday." There had never been such quiet in the school before. No one wanted to move. No one wanted to look round. Even the small children in the front desks sat as still as if they were holding their breath to listen to the clock tick. We had nearly forgotten about Josie. She had been taken off to the township hospital 3 weeks before because the nurse said there was no room for anyone sick down at Peyton's. She would be away till the next holidays, they told us. It wasn't till we had marched out and were getting our bags from the hooks on the veranda that our voices came back, and then only in whispers. "It's Deb. The nurse said it was Deb. She only said it might be. They can't tell at first. You get a sore throat and then it swells. I know, it swells till you can't swallow and then you choke. Deb, it ain't catching, is it? Not catching? Ooh, listen, he says it ain't catching." Everyone wanted to go past Peyton's on the way home, yet not to go too near. There it stood by the edge of the railway, a little slab-sided place, with no gutters on the tin roof and a chimney half brick and half wood. There was a dog-leg fence round it and a pepper tree drooping over the wood heap. No garden. Peyton was a ganger on the line and grew his vegetables on a patch inside the wires like the other navvies. They brought home sacks of them when they came home from work. and they all lived in bare little houses like this one of Peyton's, with no paddocks or yards, though usually there were a few spindly lemon or peach trees at the back. Most of us had passed the place that morning, but now a change had come over it. It had grown quiet and strange. Even the fowls, rooting in the dust, looked as if they might know something we didn't. An axe stood fixed in the chopping block near the door. The broken shutter over the front window seemed like a squinting eye. And though the place was shut up, we had a feeling that Josie was somewhere inside, lurking there, as she had a way of doing under the school veranda when the teacher had given her leave to go out. How well we remembered her sitting in the sand, letting handfuls of it filter through her fingers as she hunted for the ant lions that squatted at the bottom of their little pits, and ready to make a face at anyone who caught her. "Where's Josie Peyton?" the teacher was always asking. "Didn't she answer the roll this morning?" And one of us would be sent out to look for her. No one had ever liked Josie very much. There was her moony look, her way of cleaning her slate with her tongue, the silly grin she always gave when she was found picking at the lunch in other girls' bags. Often there was a fight about sitting next to her in class. They said she had things in her hair, and more than once she had had ringworm. But it seemed wicked to think of all that now. Josie would be lying still and cold in her room at the township hospital, her eyes closed and her face turned to wax. Yet not all of her would be there. That was what made you feel uneasy in thinking about her. When anyone died, they said, the spirit was set free, and Josie's might be somewhere about, able to overhear not only what you said, but what you thought. It might be in the house, this spirit. It might be flickering about through the air like a yellow butterfly. There was something creepy about the Peyton's place, with the broken shutter giving it a watching look, and the fowls staring one-eyed at the closed door. All that afternoon, the thought of having to die clung to us as we played about the cowsheds and down by the creek. Never before had it come so near, though we had all heard about Bob Shedden, the butcher's off-sider. He had been frightening to meet when he was drunk, his eyes all bloodshot and his horse dancing round as he laid about him with his whip, cutting the cattle coming out of the railway trucks. But they said that before he hit the ground, he had muttered, "God be merciful to me, a sinner," and that had saved him in the end. God be merciful to me, a sinner. For months afterwards we had been haunted by these words, wondering fearfully whether we would have time to get them out if the worst happened. They were always on the tip of our tongues. They came back to us every night before our eyes closed. Sometimes we gabbled them beneath our breath when we were running to take off from the high bank at the swimming hole, or preparing for a jump from the leaning tree behind the school. And they were in the air about us now as we trailed round the paddocks, waiting for the long afternoon to pass, waiting for it to be time to bring in the cows and get ready for tea. There seemed so many ways in which death might trip you up. Every black, snaky-looking stick in the grass made your heart jump. The sleepy draught horses by the bales looked as if they might lash out suddenly and catch you in the stomach. Overhead, when you lay in the grass, the sky seemed empty and far away. Eternity. What did it mean? Was there really another life that went on forever and ever, without change? And would there be a meeting place where you could find your family and the people you knew? Or was there a risk of being left wandering by yourself as you sometimes were in dreams? If you tried to think about it, you felt the world flowing away from you. You were left in some soundless place where you were cold, frightened, and hopelessly lost. And that was not the worst. There were the woodcuts in the illustrated Bible with the red cover. A world grey-black instead of dazzling white. Wicked people sitting on thunderclouds adrift in space. Pits of darkness you look down upon from the peaks of bare mountains. Hordes of grinning figures with the wings of bats and the feet of goats. They did not bear thinking about, those pictures. Nah, you would lie awake all night listening for sounds in the dark if you kept thinking of them. It was better to rush about heedlessly, jumping over every patch of grass where a snake might lie hidden, giving the heels of the draft horses a wide berth, and keeping the magic words ready on your tongue. God be merciful to me, a sinner. After all, lots of people did grow up to be old, and your chance was as good as any. That evening, when tea was finished, Mother called us out to look at the sky. It was filled with small clouds the colour of tinned salmon, massed together lightly like plucked feathers, but parted in the middle to leave a path of pearly blue. Far, far away into another world that path took you. The sun had just set, and there was a gentle look about everything. The cropped paddocks, the cows lying by their penned calves, the soft trees touched with gold. No one wanted to speak. We were thinking of Josie. Josie squatting in the dust under the school steps. Josie letting the spit run down her slate in class. Josie lying now, white as wax, her hands folded on her chest, in a room that smelt of lilies. And above were the soft clouds, parted in a pearly blue opening, as if they had been brushed aside by a feather, letting the faint stars show through. Beautiful it looked, shedding an awe upon the heart. It was the path, Mother said, made by the angels' wings as they carried Josie up to heaven. We felt sad and tender about Josie. We were glad the angels didn't know as much about her as we did.